Well, good morning. Hope you had a great weekend. Mine went very well. Taught my son how to make a donut in Blender. So, yes, we're doing the famous Blender donut tutorial. My son's 11, well into games, and has always been kind of interested in the creation of them. And I just thought, hey, let's introduce you to Blender. And he's been having a ball with it, which is really amazing because he's not particularly expressive. So that was a good weekend for me. Parenting win, I guess you could say, which is good because here in our scene, we are not in the middle of a win. We are in the middle of it just having restarted from another crash. So we're deep in the bug hunting weeds right now, and this may not be very interesting to anybody watching this stream, so I'm going to kind of mumble through this as I'm trying to hunt down what on earth it is causing this show-stopping crash. It happens at random places at random times, seemingly. So I'm not certain what's stopping all of this. As a bonus side feature, one thing we're actually trying to accomplish is I need to fade out the roof objects. When the rest of the parish church gets rebuilt, roofs go on, but I've realized that while that looks interesting and makes for a pretty looking parish church model, you can't see inside, and it's a little bit more visually interesting to actually have those roofs peeled away. So to somehow give the sense of completion of that part of the building, but also then still give the idea that you can kind of peek in and explore in places, I'm trying to fade the roofs out. The roofs get built, you see them for 3 or 4 seconds, and then the roofs fade away. And you could bring the roofs back, although I haven't quite built that in yet. So, and they dither out, which is a fun fade effect, actually. I know dithering is very like N64, but when they fade out, because of the ambient occlusion post-processing effect that's running, you still get some of the ambient occlusion. You get this interesting kind of blur and shimmery effect, which always reminds you that you're actually looking through something that is still there, rather than something that's just disappeared and you can forget about. So I'm trying to kind of work on that system, but I didn't even get there this morning. When I was testing it, it just went into this big crash. So now that we're prepared for the frustration of sudden random crashing, we should kind of move on. One thing I'm going to try to do right now, didn't want to do that. One thing I'm trying to do right now is I'm going to disable the white dots. So I'll show you what the white dots are before we disable them, just as a reminder for me and everybody else. Let's go through as Unity does its scene saving, backing up, and then reloading. I know in 2019 at .3 and in 2020 onwards, there's a kind of a quick load system that you can do that kind of pre-caches a lot of the stuff in the scene, allows the scene to start up a little quicker. There's so much work to port this over to something like 2020. That's a task for later this year. So let's go ahead. So those are the white dots. So when I go over this, you can see those 2 little white dots down below, the ones that change as I scroll through the options here. I'm just maybe the white dots. There's a manager that pulls these dots from a central UI pool, and it's maybe those things. Maybe those are what's causing the trouble. So I don't know. They're not necessary at this time. They're just simply there to let the user know that you have several options in this quote-unquote conversation with this part of the building. So I think something like them is interesting and useful. I'm just going to completely disable that system right now just to see if I have a more stable testing experience. I'm also not ruling out the idea there's something actually just wrong with my computer. So that's fun. I'm just getting nothing in the log console, getting nothing at all. So yeah, we will see what we can do here. Also, I've been trying to fix the adjust pivot window. So anyway, that's been running a little warning in my log, and every time I look at my logs, I see that, and I think, I gotta fix that. We'll see if I just fixed it. I don't know. So, I don't even need this in right now. Hang on, bear with me. I'm just really curious to see if I fix the warning that's showing up in the log report here. So let's go look in the editor log. And do I get an adjust pivot error? No, look at that. I don't get an adjust. Well, maybe I do. Hang on. Let's keep looking through this, because I had pressed play at one point. No, we're looking pretty good here. So much to load and unload. Of course, how far back in time does this log go? Give me a date stamp somewhere, log. Doesn't matter. Where are we finding it? Nope. This is all the usual guff you get when Unity starts up for the first time. But we're not getting anything about the adjust pivot, so maybe that's good. I don't know. And the window's still open, so that was cool. Okay. Okay, let's see, what are we doing here? So let's disable the white dot manager. Now here's a wonderful little here's a wonderful little gotcha when you're using a kind of design pattern I'm using a kind of message sending, I don't know what kind of design pattern you would call that right now. But what that means is that as far as is possible, each script only really knows about itself, but is listening for messages that are sent out centrally from a messenger system. And if it catches a message that it has subscribed to, then it executes whatever the instructions are in that message. And that's how I'm trying to avoid a strongly coupled system. It's still a stupidly strongly coupled system because I'm not so good with logic, but it's better than it might be. But here's an interesting thing. If you have a script that is disabled, like the white dot manager script here, great. So you would think that would just disable the entire white dot manager system. It doesn't, because in this case, if we can fire up Visual Studio here, have a look in the IDE. Here we go. Load up, load up. This computer's getting close to 10 years old. It's a Mac Pro, so it's got a lot of juice in it. But it's close to 10 years old, so, you know, it's going to be a little bit slow. Okay, so here it is. This is the white dot script. Here's some of the methods or the functions that it calls to assemble and disassemble the system. It's great. But here we go. In onEnable and onDisable, this is where I subscribe to various messages. So I'm listening for a message called assemble dots, also listening for disassemble dots and some other things. Disassemble dots. Even if this script is not active on the one object that it's on, and this is the only object in the entire scene that the white dot manager is in, even if this is disabled with that little check mark unticked here, I will still get, we'll watch this, we'll still get the dots assembling, and that's because disabled scripts still listen for things they've subscribed to, and so they'll still pick those up even if they're disabled, which is an interesting thing that I ran into a little while ago. So we'll see, we'll test this out. Maybe something else is actually stopping it, but let's give it a shot and see what we see. So that's lovely. I don't know, my white dots are gone now. Well, that's nice. Okay, so the white dots are gone. So sometimes it does pick up on those. Well, anyway, good. So I guess that's disabled. I'm not quite sure, but I'm actually going to just disable the subscriptions here. I'm gonna disable everything inside onEnable and onDisable. I'm just gonna get rid of them. Yeah, thank you. Oy. detail. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Anyway, I'm just going to comment all of these out so that even if the message gets broadcast, the white dot manager is never going to pick it up, even if the white dot manager is disabled. I'm just going to do this to just double check that my white dot manager is never actually getting triggered. It could be getting called, but it's never getting. None of these methods are actually getting called. And let's just see if our system is more stable now. So I'm kind of at a loose ends here because Unity crashes before I can get any feedback on why it's crashing, but it seems to mostly crash when I hover over a part of the building that can be rebuilt with a kind of dialog box configuration, which I call a building block. There's two different main types of rebuilding interaction that you get in this game. I spent the weekend trying to think about the kind of fundamental things that need to be done because I'm going to kind of rebuild the code of this once we get the demo done. There's two different types of interaction that you can mainly do in the game. One type of interaction is this, where a bit of an existing mesh, you just click on it and it just rebuilds itself automatically. So that's fun. Actually, I love seeing all the little bits reassemble themselves. And then the other type of rebuilding interaction is this right here, or this right here, which is what I call a building block. So this that rebuilds rubble, I call that a rubble builder. And this bit here, where you have an option of different types of things that you can rebuild, or like this one right here, that's where you get two different options, I call that a building block. And that's it. Those are really the only two types of rebuilding interaction you get in this game, as far as I've done so far. And hopefully it's enough to be interesting. There's a lot of exploration and other mechanics, but the kind of fundamental thing that you do is this. So that's what we're going to focus on. Things are really slowing down now, so I don't know what I've done now. But anyway, I'm going to do a two-story one because I'm trying to get as fast as I can to where I rebuild the roof of the nave. And that's still 2 stages away. Do you see how slow that's running? I don't really know why it's suddenly slow. I'm sure I broke it, something else. Let's open up that portal. There we go. Let's change times. Let's zoom in. I also found out that visually it's much more interesting zoomed in rather than seeing the entire site all at once. I'm still trying to figure out how I deal with that visually, because it's fun to see your whole site, but it seems just more visually interesting when you're actually playing the game to zoom in on to be zoomed right in. You get to see all the little detail, I guess, and that's kind of fun because there's actually quite a lot of detail in these models. Come on, stay in place. Okay, last one there. Let's rebuild. So the last time it crashed, I had built this arch, and then before it was finished building, I decided to build the one next to it. Let's see if that's what's causing the crash, if I'm launching 2 rebuilds. So 1, 2. It causes problems, but it didn't crash it. I've got to come up with a system that I guess prevents the user from rebuilding more than one thing at a time if we're using the same kind of mesh. Because like I bet I could rebuild like this arch and one of these arches at the same time and it would work. Okay, see, aha, the roof faded out. It did what it was supposed to do. That's awesome, actually. But it's not doing my cool little faded out. There. Okay. There's a crash. Why is it doing it? I don't know. Nobody knows. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Returned unexpected error, but that's in Safari. Let's just keep checking out, seeing what's happening here. Let's get my errors and faults. Kill returned unexpected error at 6:57. That's all in Safari. That is not. So that's just my browser is causing these errors and faults. I mean, who knows? Who knows what's going on? Lots more unexpected errors. So I just really, anyway. So let's look in our log reports. So somewhere around 6:56, stuff started to die. You can look in my system log. I don't actually have any clue what any of this stuff is. But it all happened around the time that it crashed. Posting stream filters, stream mode client. None of this stream stuff doesn't have anything to do with the streaming right now. I don't know what this stream is, but it was doing this before I was streaming. I really am not skilled in reading my system logs, which I maybe should get more skilled in. So we've got an invalid path for the XPC launcher. Maybe that's what's doing it. This core simulator, that tends to die as well, but these happen all the time. Yeah, and then the editor, the Unity editor, all of this backup scene stuff, this is just what happens when you press play. And that all happened, right when we started up. So, I don't have anything in the Unity log to indicate that we have this problem here. So, let's just force quit Unity. So, first crash of the stream. Like I said, I'm not quite sure how interesting this is going to be for anybody. But I'm trying to hunt this down. I don't know why I keep getting these crashes. Like I said, it doesn't seem like it's 100%. I don't seem to be doing anything particularly unusual or different in the game. I need to run this on my laptop and see if I get the crashes there, or if I get similar log error entries in the system, that sort of thing. Because it's just very strange. So we're not looking for this one that happened at 6:58 about monitor resource, this bug in lib dispatch client. We're not actually looking for that. But it could be any of these things. So like this launch failure. So I don't know. Seems to me like this happens a lot. Some of these errors here. Yeah, like this one. It seems to happen multiple times. Like right here, it's just stuff running in the background. So I don't know. Wish I knew what was going on. Oh well. It's one of those things you think, well, maybe I just have to throw away the whole system. It's become so like hidebound now, so bound up in its own. Maybe I've got some sort of race condition going. Those are hard to debug. I don't know. Don't know where we're at this point. So, like I said, maybe this will be a short stream because it's not particularly interesting to anybody as I kind of dig around and try to figure out what I'm doing. One of the nice things was, though, is that we got to see that roof kind of vanish after a while. I think the timing on it needs to be changed a little bit. So let's go in and change that timing. Just because it's something I can do that I know I've got some sort of control over. It'd be interesting to know if I get this show-stopping error on the laptop. So I might try that out at some point later today. I haven't actually been developing on the laptop for a couple weeks now. Because I had this great week. This just fantastic week. Let's go down to a 4-second wait on that, which will turn into, I know these values are hard-coded, which is really stupid of me, but that's okay. So I have a 3-second wait here, so when an object that's supposed to fade out when it begins, when it's supposed to go into the scene, you're supposed to see it, and then you're supposed to notice that it exists for a few seconds for it to kind of register, and then it's supposed to fade out over a 1-second period. This is where it waits. It counts down over 3 seconds, is what this line here does. And then when it's done, it calls this function, which then actually fades the material out for 1 second, and all the while, over here, the individual object just sits and waits for 4 seconds, and after 4 seconds, it sets its materials. So anyway, what's happening with the fading out system is that I have one material on all of the objects that need to fade out when they pop into existence. The moment they pop into existence, a timer starts. And the first thing that happens is that the materials get swapped out from the standard kind of base material. It gets swapped out to one shared material. So there's only one instance of it around, which means I'm not popping in a new draw call for every single object that needs to fade. That's kind of important. Because I have a shared material, there's still one draw call. Theoretically, there's some problems with that. But anyway, theoretically, there's still one draw call. And then that material fades down, but because it's a shared material, it's fading globally, so I'm not getting every instance of the object being a draw call, or every instance where the material is as a draw call. It's all fading at once. So they fade out, and then when they're done fading out, they swap into a new material, which is a completely faded out version of that material. And then if I wanted to bring them back in through visibility, the completely faded out version of the material would get swapped again for a global material that would fade in, and then once it was done fading in, the timer would run. This timer here, after 3 seconds, would switch the materials again, and we'd be back to our normal shared material. So this whole thing was trying to avoid draw calls by sharing materials as much as possible. But in Unity, when you alter a material property, I'm just going to talk about this because I do have this deep sense of frustration right now. This is something I can talk about. When you alter a material property, such as this fade control, if you slide that up or down, if you do that, each individual object, if you do this for individual objects in the scene, suddenly those individual objects will make a clone of this material, and then you'll fade that clone, which is great, but what that does is for every clone of this material, you get one more draw call added, which slows down your rendering onto your screen, slows down your frame rate. If you can share the material across multiple objects, then when you're altering this, you're only altering one instance of the material. It's all batched into one draw call. And I may be confusing batching and draw calls, but anyway, it's slightly more efficient. Premature optimization is the root of all evil, of course, because I don't know if this really matters, but I was doing this on a vertex by vertex level, which was great because it wasn't ever altering any of my materials. It was altering the verts themselves. But when I was doing this over thousands of verts every single update frame, it really tanked my frame rate, unsurprisingly. So this was my kind of compromise. So I have one script in the scene, this world visibility manager. This one script is controlling this kind of dither-based fading material system. And if it works great here, I'll do it for other types of materials as well. But anyway, so I just, right now, I've actually hard-coded in the delay. I give it a little delay, one for your eyes to adjust and say, oh, I've got something interesting here. The other delay is to give the system time to swap out all of these materials for each individual object. Yeah, so it's to kind of cover up a loading time as well. It's like Laura squeezing through some cleft in a rock where your visibility is suddenly deeply hampered, and that's because in the background they're actually loading up more of the game that you will see ahead of you. This is one of those little tricks. I'm just trying to give my system enough time to get itself sorted out. But when we did it last time, we were on a 5-second delay. 5 seconds seemed a bit too long for the whole process, so we'll nudge it down a second. I really shouldn't make these hard-coded, but it's what's going to be expedient right now. So the fade-in material needs to start at 0. I just need to make sure my fade control is working. My fade-out material needs to start at 1, and my faded-out material is 0, so that's all good. So I wasn't getting my interesting little foggy effect. I guess that's because my materials changed, and so I don't know. I might actually take my faded out material and bump it up a little bit. In fact, actually, you don't bump it up a little bit, you bump it up a lot. You bump it up to like 0.72 or 0.73 actually, so there's just a tiny bit of the dither left. Let's see what happens if we get that far. So I'm going to save the whole scene because who knows how far we're going to get. If any of you have any clues on why I keep just crashing all of Unity, I know it could be anything, but if you've got an idea, let me know. Let me know in the chat if you're watching this live right now. Hit me up on Twitter if you've got any kind of an idea of what's going on, because I really don't. These can rebuild, these Rebel builders can rebuild at the same time because they're not relying on, not a mesh that's shared, but they share a rebuild game object. So if I grab this is running a lot smoother now. I don't know. So in this rebuild effect here, this type of effect, like that little arched window, there's only one of those in the entire scene, and every time we run a rebuild, we actually get this window, this little arched window thing. It appears in place, and then it clones itself at the end. But if you interrupt that build sequence, I'm just watching as things happen here. If you interrupt that build sequence, it steals that one object that's in the scene and it sticks it on the next one. And then when it finishes the sequence, it makes a clone, but it makes a clone in the place of the next one. I don't like having to kind of instantiate or clone objects more than I need to, because it's a slow op process, generates garbage, blah, blah, blah. And so this is kind of the compromise I've come to, but it looks like if the player clicks on more than one of these at a time, it can cause some trouble. So I might do something where I disable player input, at least in terms of rebuilding. I disable it while something else is building. That might be a fun system for us to implement today. I might be able to control that. Okay. So let's rebuild this bad boy. Let's keep going here. Let's just take a look at the roof. Other things to bug fix in this system. the save and load system isn't quite working the way I want it to. So yeah, you go there. So I might force the player to do this one at a time. There we go. Nice. Okay. It died again. And if we look in the console, died at about 7:11 or 7:12. Come on, console, stop doing things. 7:11. Huh. Yeah, I have no idea how to find things in here. 7:12. Ooh, why can't we go up any further in our log? I guess this is it. Yeah, I'm just... See, this is all Safari stuff here. Ooh, pardon me. No idea what's going on. So here's a memory address, but I don't know if... Like, what is this process? WebKit. See, this is all WebKit. Dist noted. Hidden. I just need something. Yeah, this is all web stuff. So I assume all this stuff has to do with Safari or whatever. Attempting to suspend based on triggers. Just trying, I don't know what all this stuff is. I'm trying to find something that isn't obviously web related. I'm just curious about what else is going on in the system when this thing happens. So this is actually iTunes playing music. Still looking. Airplay, all sorts of stuff that it's just kind of doing its thing in the background. This is all iTunes stuff here. Still at 7:12. Media remote. Login window. Okay, so this is where I kill it. This is where I kill the app, the login window stuff here. And it's adding all of the running apps. That's what all these are. See, I know what that is. So yeah, so the fault happened sometime before 7:12 and 47 seconds. And maybe I didn't jump on it. Our log only goes back to 44. I'm just trying to find something somewhere, but oh well, not working. Okay. So why did this happen? Who knows? Nobody knows. Okay. Well, maybe one strategy for me. I don't know what one strategy for me might be. I've got to think about this for a little bit. I'm just trying to narrow down what's going on, seeing if I can isolate the activity. But like I said, I think I'll try running this on my laptop and seeing where we get there. The eagle eye amongst you may have spotted an error in my console. This is a music or a sound playback error. Not a music, just an audio playback error. And again, I'm not entirely certain what's causing it, but it seems to happen when there's a rebuild. So I need to jump in to all of my objects that actually have some sort of audio. Because I have like the start of an audio system going in here, but it's not particularly, well, it's not robust. And I think I may be getting overlapping attempts to play things. I don't know. So I need to dig in and find every place where there's audio and just turn that off. And I think I can do that. I hope I can do that. So these guys, these are all my rebel builders. Rebuild from rebel. And is there an audio part on this? Nope. Nope. So let's go through and find where else this is. Well, come on. What have we got? I should have a reference here. Nope, that's not what I want. Oh, here's my rebel. It's in tower collapsed export. Now, is there an audio on this one? Well, let's wait until let's keep an eye on the log. And if we get that far to get that error in the log, then we can pause it. We can dig into who's calling that. It's just worth, obviously, clearing out all of your errors. I know I've got warnings all over the place here. You'll see like several hundred warnings showing up. So, time to rebuild again. Let's do this one. That should actually be playing some audio, as should all of these. Okay, let's go pick that one up. Just watching to see where our audio error shows up. It will probably show up when this completes here in just one more click. And it did not. Nice. So it's those intermittent problems that are the real turkeys to try to figure out. Okay, here we go again. Man, it's getting cold in here. I have, it's very cold. And if you're in Spain, I gather it's very cold as well. But I've turned the heater off so that we don't run into that problem. What if I do that? I'm just trying to see, like, you know, can I recreate this issue? See, clicking on that killed that, but that's Okay, there we go. So that's part of my problem. Good. I'm starting to be able to kind of at least get a I'm starting to get something. That's good, actually. I'm starting to be able to reconstruct it. Okay, I've got an idea. It seems like it's starting to happen more regularly when one of those building blocks, those kind of dialogue option based ones, when one of those building blocks is rebuilding, and I move over to another block and click it, and essentially we're kind of sending out another rebuild command, and we're stacking rebuild commands, and this doesn't have any way to deal with that problem. So I could either build a more robust system that allows you to deal with stacked building commands, or I can just create a system that watches if a rebuild animation is in progress. So I think what I'm going to do is do that. I'm going to watch if a rebuild animation is in progress. Yep. And we're going to set a big old variable in our global controller program, which is called Grand Central. And everybody has access to Grand Central. They can all look at the state of all the variables in it. And that's the most easily accessible script I've got. So let's look at Grand Central. And we're just going to add a bool called isRebuilding. And if isRebuilding is on, we are going to prevent calls to rebuilding other things. So it'll be a little complex, and I'll probably not get it right the first 10 times. But this is a direction for us, so let's begin this direction at least. So here's my Grand Central script. It's a singleton, which means everybody can see it, which is lovely. That's what we want. And I'm going to put in a public build somewhere right up around here. Where is my block input one? Block input's another big deal. Let's see. Well, I could just search for it, couldn't I? No, no block input. Apparently it's not in here. Okay, well, block input isn't a global kind of accessible thing. Fine. Camera moving. That's a public input. Oh, that's cool. Okay, let's just stick it down here. Public bool. Rebuild running equals false. So it's going to be false most of the time. Okay, now when we're over, so our kind of building block manager, let's put this away. Put this away. I'm just going to get rid of a bunch of this stuff. Okay, so if you click on the object, that's when we want to tell it that it's rebuilding. Oh, object placement RT, that's what we want, that is correct. Report, destroy, occupier added, nope. On occupy, we're gonna keep a mental bookmark on that one. Build models, build the submodels, none of that's what we want. Select option, scroll through options, select options, that's the guy we want. Okay. Wonder what will happen. I'm just wondering if it's happening when we mouse over, or if it's happening. I'll even prevent it from mouse overing. So let's kill it. First of all, no. So when an option is selected, we've got to set. This is where we set that it's doing the rebuilding. Let's set our bool on Grand Central first. Okay, there's a whole bunch of these nested ifs. Sorry, this is going to kill people who are good coders. I'm going to throw another one in there. So that'll be fun. Did I do it here? Mouse over and current option equals null. Does not equal null. Mouse down count equals 0. Let's do it right up here. This is going to be the next layer of checking we have to do. So if grand central dot instance dot is rebuilding if rebuild running equals false. Yep. Nope. Okay, now we got to come all the way down to the end of this gigantic if. Put our next bracket in place. Okay. There we go. Okay. So if the rebuild, so basically if there's no rebuild running, proceed. That's what we want. My collider, and I need to find where it calls build models. Disassemble dots. Yup, that's great. This mesh combiner stuff is from a long time ago. We don't really need it, but if I strip it out, it's too much of a pain, so it just sits there. There we go. Assemble fragments. This is where the whole thing starts up, and then it calls the build aux models. This is a sound thing, by the way. Okay. So this is where we set it. Grand central dot instance dot rebuild running equals true. Okay, that's where we set it. Now we need to wait until the whole process is finished before we unset it. I'm going to go look in this on occupy, which I said put a mental bookmark on that method. So it says it's occupied, but this one I'm not sure if it waits. This is part of the problem. New object place, block scrolling equals false. All these other things here. This fires a bunch of rules. The game object gets locked. I need to find a way to wait until... a way to wait until the build is done. And how do I determine if everything built is finished? Because there's all sorts of things that can get built when you just click on one object. They all have an animation time in which they're all supposed to build. What gets called with the fragment manager when it's finished building? Kind of would not like to work in that one because that's a really horrible script. But I would like to know what happens when it's done. Okay, horrible script here. Assemble fragments. Do the actual assembly. Assemble fragments, assemble fragments. No fragments, these are all the things. Count fragments is what happens at the end. Combine fragments. Object resets. No mesh combiner. Well, let's take a look. I'm going to go back and look. Oh, in the scene. I'm going to go grab a sample rebuilder. Good sample one here is the tower arch. Tower arch standing remains. Do I have a kind of a global timing set on that? Start date, end date. Has local rules, block options, percent of fragments, assembly time. That's it. That's the one. The whole assembly has to happen within this assembly time. That gets passed to everything else that builds, I think. So that's the one we're going to work on for now. Okay, let's go back here. All this model building, all this on occupy stuff. It's kind of a shame that that on occupy happens like right at the end. And I don't have a way to tell if the thing is done, so let's go down to on occupy. What we will do is we will set a timer. Occupier added. No, that's not what we need. Okay, we're going to set a little timer down here. Public void on occupy on complete. Okay, and in this function here, we're going to go to our grand central and our instance of that, and we're going to set our rebuild running to false. Okay, and this is going to get called at the end of on occupy. Right here after it locks everything, we're going to call it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do, so I have a little system called lean tween, which is a really good system. It's by a place or a guy called Dented Pixel. It's been around forever and ever. It's a really quick and lean tweening system, but what's really good about it is that it's got, essentially, you can set up a bunch of timers without having to set up a whole bunch of coroutines and other things. So you can, anyway, it's got a little bit of overhead. It might even generate a bit of garbage, but I use this constantly because for a timer, it's just a really good way of sequencing things. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. This is the way I do it. Okay, lean tween value. It doesn't really matter what we go from and what we go to. All that we care about is the time it takes to do it. And in this case, it's the assembly time. And I'm actually going to do, I'm not sure if this is the way to note it, assembly time plus some fudge plus 1/10 of a second. Okay, so whatever the assembly time is set to plus 1/10 of a second, and after that's done, we'll set on complete. And what that means is when this whole thing is done, and then we'll call the on occupy on complete function right there. So here's our little timer. And what this should do, in theory, is this should stop us from rebuilding another building block while one building block is running. We shall see. Oh yes, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm even going to prevent models from appearing while another rebuild is running somewhere else. So we're going to go through hovered over, and hovered over is going to check all of these different things. We're going to do one more check in here. If grand central dot instance dot rebuild running is false, go ahead and do your thing. But if it's true, do nothing. All right. Let's find out what happens. Let's give this a shot. this will have to be the last thing because I'm late. It's a regular day. I'm back to work regularly, for real. So, no more happy days coding away. We're back to the regular work day, and I'm already taking some liberties here, so last one. If it crashes, it crashes. Who cares? Anyway, this is fairly draconian, and it might make the feel of the game not so great, but for now, I just want to see if I can get a handle on this bug problem. Okay, so I've got one there. Let's see what I'm trying to do here in a minute. Okay, so I've got one there, and I've got one here. So if I rebuild this one, see? Oh, see, it says it's... Okay, well, it allowed me to hover over this and get an option before this had finished. So, obviously, but it was working for a little while. So that's really, really good. So my task is to figure out a way to accurately determine if a rebuild has ended. So I've got to figure out a way to do that. I've got to plow through some of my code, but maybe I'm on the right track to figuring out how to get rid of these bugs. So maybe by Wednesday I won't have these show-stopping crashes anymore. I think there's a fat chance of that, but we'll do it anyway. So with that hopeful but maybe not hopeful note, I will sign off this morning because I got to go in and get the family going as well. And enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you on Wednesday morning.